Let's go to Tori in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Charlotte, what's up?
Hey, how are you, John?
So good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
What are you doing? What are y'all doing there? Y'all having fun?
Yeah, we are having fun. It's a little chilly these days, but I am a little upset that Nashville MLS soccer team just beat our new MLS soccer team getting started now the other day.
Well, I'm a little upset that somebody mentioned that communist sport on my show. I'm just totally kidding. I'm not.
Yeah,
listen,
well-
I'm not great at soccer. It's a lot of running and kicking, and those guys all look super. Can I just tell you this? I was in Brazil with my wife, and you know how like in the States you can drive by like a city park and they're playing basketball. They play basketball till late in the evening, whatever. Well, in Brazil, It was 1,000 degrees. It was so hot, so beautiful, and it's like tropical. It's unbelievable. And my wife was doing some research was helping some schools, whatever, and so I was just on my own. And I drove by late at night, one of those, it looked like it looked like a tennis court, like a basketball court, except they were playing soccer. Oh my. It was the most incredible. Everyone was beautiful. All of them were beautiful. And I thought, this sport's probably not for me. I need a sport like fighting where everyone's not that attractive. It's cool. So good for you. Hey, and
that's awesome.
Tell your team to pick it up. They're terrible. All right, let's go.
I know.
So what's up, Tori?
Yeah, okay. Well, I am a brand new labor and delivery nurse, and I love everything about it. They're really, really good days. I get to see awesome babies and crazy stories and miracles. And there's really hard days too. And there's rare days that we lose babies and babies don't make it or are born not living.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like I'm not grieving these babies effectively. So what are some tools that can help me improve and grieve more effectively?
What a great question. Number one, thank you for being there. That's such a gift. Wow. What drew you to that work?
I spent time overseas, and I worked with medical mission teams in Ecuador, actually, in like indigenous communities in the mountains. And it was just such a clear picture to me that like no matter what corner of the world I go to, healthcare is needed, and they're birthing babies. Like if I went into some specialties, I might not be able to do it wherever in the whole world. But
they're not doing knee replacements everywhere. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Very cool. That's what a great
like
heart.
Intricate like oncology treatments or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
So I love it. I love maternity. I love getting to meet women at that place and that vulnerability and supporting them. And honestly, it's so hard. I don't love working with a woman when her baby doesn't make it, but it is a privilege to be with her in those moments too,
That's right. So what makes you think you're not grieving well?
I before working in labor and delivery, I worked in oncology and I worked at a nursing home, and so it's not like I haven't seen death at work, and it's not like some lives are more important than others.
It's
but
totally
there's something
different.
It's so different. There's just something about babies, and we work, after they're born. Cleaning them, having parents hold them, taking pictures of them. And it's just very, very hands-on and elaborate. And I've just been finding that in 8 months of working there, it's happened 4 times to me. And every time I'm messed up for days.
Yeah.
Like connection with people is hard. There's little things that happen that just put me in like a puddle on the floor. And it's just surprising to me, like how debilitating it is. Again, when that's not something that's very new in my world, but like death in general. Yeah.
So I've talked about it some on the show. I pride myself on being able to walk into the most bonker situations. And twice in my career, I left my crisis state. So this is stuff I would do after hours. I left my partner. And both times I said, I got to go. I have to step out of here, which is a big no-no, except I came to learn that it's a gift. And I'll tell you about it in a second. But I had a little baby girl when Josephine, my daughter, was young, when she was 1 or 2. I went to one call that was at a ER, and it was with a tiny, tiny youngster. And I'll never forget, I saw the youngster's arm through a crowd of people. There are people working on her, and my job was to go tell the parents what had happened and to sit with the parents while they tried to keep this little girl alive. And I saw 6 inches of her arm. I just saw her arm through a crack of people, and my body reacted in a way that I I was caught off guard by.
Yeah.
And I found myself turning to leave. And like you, I would never do that. You know what I mean? It
Right.
was weird.
Yeah.
It was almost, I was grieving my own body. Like, what are you doing? And
Yeah.
my partner, Janice, who I just love, she looked at me and said, what are you doing? I said, I got to go. I can't be here. And she's like, you're leaving me?
Mhm.
And I said, I'm telling you right now, I got to go. And she's like, get out of here. And we talked later and she said, I'm so glad you had the courage to tell me. Then I said, that's never happening again. Like, I'm going to flex and snap into a Slim Jim and listen to some Jocko podcast or whatever. Like, I'm going to be all in. And then I was a part of a situation where there was a mom telling her little babies that their daddy had died by suicide. And that was another one. When the kids started crying, I turned and said, I got to go. I left. And for me, two things were important. Number one was knowing your body knows as well or better than you do. And I had a little girl at the time. Now I could do it. Now I would be fine. But at the time, my body was recognizing those stories running simultaneously, and it overloaded the system. And so, and then here's the other thing. I had to develop really robust processes for handling that stuff. You know what I mean? Because I can't just leave every time. Same as your job. Right. So when you say your body is like, you're just a puddle for 4 days, give me some very specific things. What does that mean?
I remember it was actually just last week I had my most recent one. And I remember just being there, like trying to cook dinner with my husband. And I don't even remember what we were talking about, but there was just something that set me off, and I just had to, and I'm really not like that at all. And even like my husband's come and he's been like, whenever something happens with like our family or whatever, like I'm a rock kind of person, but I'll just have to disappear and have to like get out of the room and like take a walk or something. And,
what does it feel like?
About it.
What does it feel like?
Really heavy.
Yeah.
It feels like every time it happens, it's like costing a really deep part of me,
there you go. Yeah.
To be there and be with the family. Yeah. It just feels like every single time I'm giving a part of me away, and it's heavy. It's really heavy.
Yeah. Or sometimes it's giving yourself a part of you away. I remember a few situations where I felt like a part of me was taken. I didn't give permission for it. So
I didn't ask for that.
Yeah. When I show up to situations and, there's people who have passed away here and there's dead people here, dead people here, I chose to walk into those rooms, and I'm okay giving up a piece of myself in that moment because I've got other people who are right there with me, whether they're my partners or the greatest supervisor ever, Dr. Young, who are there to refill, right? It's when I go into a situation and I feel like a part of me gets taken. That's where it's unnerving, right?
That's it, yeah.
So I'm going to walk through a couple of things that I did and that I still do, and then leave you with one cool truth and one really hard one, okay?
Yeah. All
right, so here's the first one. And this, by the way, if you're listening to this and think, well, gosh, I'm glad I'm not a delivery nurse, or I'm not a trauma nurse, or I'm not a whatever. Everybody experiences this stuff. And these are moments when your body overrides your system. That's trauma. When whatever's going on, your body says, whoa, can't handle that. And some people fight it, and some people run from it, and some people just go completely numb. And some people are able to go through the motions, and then it shows up in it. I call it, this is a gross word, but we call it leakage, right? If you don't deal with it, it will find a way out. And it's usually at a real inopportune time, right? Like your husband just gets home and he leans in to kiss you, and you just start crying and throw the spatula at him. And he's like, what happened? Right? It comes out at weird places, or you're giving a talk and all of a sudden you just start weeping and you can't get it back, right? So here's a couple things. One last question. Sorry. Do you have young kids?
No.
Okay.
I've not been pregnant yet. And
okay.
I think that's another part of it, is just like, it's very, very easy to put myself in those potential shoes,
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I did, and you've heard me say this probably every show since the show started, is whenever I would show up to be with somebody who had just passed and the loved ones that were left, whether that was at a hospital with a 1-year-old or a 6-month-old or a 2-year-old, or I was showing up to a house, like you mentioned, with a 98-year-old who had just passed away from, congestive heart failure, and I was with his widow, right? Whatever it was, if I left that house and I could tell it was still hanging on me, I wrote that person a letter. And I told them who I was. I told them that I was going to be there to love their family and that I was going to make sure that I did my best to take care of them. And I was so grateful for the time they got to spend on this earth, and I wished them well in wherever they were going. But it was a moment of, here's what I'm doing. I'm taking a body that has become dysregulated. It's been overwhelmed by trauma, and I am intentionally bringing it back online. I'm letting my body know, yes, we see this happened. I am in control. I'm talking to this person and using their name if I have it, and then I'm going to set this down. And there's a highly therapeutic process that just goes with that. And there were times I wept. There were times I couldn't. It was a paragraph, and that was it, and it was fine. And there's other times I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And those became some of my most prized possessions because they were letters to like a lost child. They were letters to a teenager who died by suicide and left his mom bewildered, right? But it ended up being about me being able to reclaim that part that was taken from me. And it's a 30-minute practice. It's an hour practice. You do it by yourself. And my guess is it would be really healing for you.
Yeah.
The second thing is, this is hard, but when you see that happening, when you recognize that someone's about to give birth to a child who's passed away already, or when that baby is born, and this happened with my son, you make eye contact with all the other nurses, and everybody knows this is a big deal. This one's scary. My son had a knot in the umbilical cord, and it wasn't cinched. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. But I noticed, having been in a lot of those situations, I noticed all the nurses, how they reacted, and I knew something was wrong, right? One of the tendencies is to pull away from mom and dad, from that single mom sitting there, from the mom and the dad and the grandma and everybody when what's happening. This is going to sound bonkers, but lean into it.
Yeah.
Get closer to mom or dad. Get skin-to-skin contact. Hold hands if it's appropriate, if you're able to, if it's welcome. Hug. Put your hands on the baby if it's at all possible. Go into it and give your body a chance to process this thing, not just rip it from it, okay?
Yeah.
And what the tendency is when you'd walk into a house and everyone's weeping so loud is to be like, whoa, I'm not wanted here. That's exactly where you got to step in. Now, someone may say, get your hands off me. I don't want to touch anybody. And they're screaming and yelling, and that's hard and it's scary and all those things. And then obviously you're going to honor what somebody tells you. Most of the time, somebody will hug you until you can't breathe, or they will squeeze your hand until you feel like it's going to come off, right?
Yeah.
There's something about leaning into that instead of leaning out. The third thing that was really important for me, and again, I mean, I had the single greatest supervisor, boss, friend, mentor, whatever you want to call him, Dr. Andy Young. He changed my life, man. But after the heavy ones, he would call me. And it might be 2:30 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning. How are you? You doing okay? Just want to check in on you. What'd you see? And he would always ask, what did you see? And there was something about telling somebody else, here's what I just saw, that again, like writing it down, gets it out of my body. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to have a couple of friends that you can call day or night, and y'all can do that for each other. You can have a text code that's like, text 5555. That means one of us needs to talk right now. And then y'all can get on each other's radar, and you can just tell somebody through tears and weeping and sobbing and snot, here's what I just saw. Here's what just happened. And there's something about getting it out and sharing that burden with you. As David Kessler says, grief demands a witness. Someone's got to hear it and see it with you, okay? And then here's the last thing, or last two things. When that thought lightning bolts into your head of that baby laying there, or when you've seen them do that, it's unbelievable. It's almost disassociative when they're doing the, it's like the CPR thing, but it's that little bitty squeeze thing, and they're trying to get a breath back. Yeah. And that little bitty chest going up and down. It's one of the most heartbreaking things you can watch. For me, it haunts me. I will see that one again. And what David Kessler talks about in his book is so phenomenal is I can control my thoughts. And the moment that picture of that little baby who's just passed away, or that mother who is a different kind of scream when a mother loses her baby, it's something that's very unique. Yeah. And when that, you know what I'm talking about? You've seen that?
I do.
Yeah. Yep. It's easy for that to lightning bolt back in our heads, and then we just sit and think about it over and over and over. And it's our brain's way of protecting us so that this never happens to us again. And what we have is a moment right then when that happens to say, I'm out, not doing that. Off, not doing it, stop. And I'm going to think about something else, whether it's a mother I remember laughing, whether it's a healthy baby, whether it's a hug that I'm giving that father who's weeping there. I'm going to intentionally replace that negative thought with something positive right away. And over time, you'll learn to do that easier and easier and easier. And now I've done it for so long, it's just instantaneous. Okay?
Right.
But it's something you practice. Here's the final thing. There may come a moment where you have to look in the mirror, sit with your husband and say, I love, love, love this work, but this part of this is not for me. And that will be hard and that'll be heartbreaking. I don't think that's where you are. I think you sound a lot like where I was like, oh, I found my body's limits. I've got to dig deeper and I've got to find new tools that I don't have. But I do have people that worked in the crisis team with me that ultimately said, I got to go. Like, I can't keep going into these situations. And so knowing your boundaries is really important. Okay. And you're not broken. You didn't fail. It's just your body saying, this is what we can handle. Kind of like, like not everyone can be a lineman, right? Not everyone in a football game, because they'll just get crushed. Or like in your silly sport that only scores 1 point after 11 hours of playing or whatever. Like, not everybody can be a goalie, right? Not everybody can be a center forward. And so at some point you got to know, like, hey, I love medical stuff. But man, the maternity ward's not for me. I'm going to go do something else. I don't think that's where you are, but just keep that in the back of your mind there. Okay. So I just threw a lot at you. Is any of that helpful?
That's really helpful. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Here's what would be a great gift.
Yeah.
I would love for you to write a letter to the little baby that passed recently. And I'd love to mail you to mail us a copy of it. And if you'll mail us a copy of it, I'll read it on the air.
I can do that.
I think the world would benefit from hearing how much you love somebody else's baby. And I want you to hang on the line. I'm going to send you a copy of my brand new book, Own Your Past, Change Your Future, that has an entire chapter on grieving, an entire chapter on forgiveness, an entire chapter on how to move forward. So hang on the line. We're going to send you a free copy of that. Thank you so much for the call. Man, you're awesome. Hey, thank you so much for being in the lives of our families and mothers and fathers and kids. And good folks, as you hear in the news, these nurses, I'll tell you what, I've seen them. I've stood shoulder to shoulder with them. These nurses, they are the adhesive that holds our communities together.